Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina, I'm the host here, and my guest today is Sheena McNeely from Casual Fashion Queen. Hi, Sheena.
Hello, how are you?
Good, glad to have you on my channel. Why Casual Fashion Queen? It's like it seems sort of
Well,
contradictory.
I always was very interested in fashion since I was very, very little. I used to watch E before it was what it is now, and it would just be runways and actual fashion shows and things like that. And it was always kind of an obsession. I actually saw Casual Fashion Queen on the binding of a magazine once, and I just kind of liked how it sounded. It was kind of sporadic, but I liked the application of just how anyone can kind of just be their own fashionista, fashion queen. You can just for the day, just dress however you want to be and be whoever you want to be. And I really like to kind of apply that idea to knitting and crocheting and sewing your own garments, because you're just kind of casually becoming your own fashion queen by making these handmade to your body type, to the colors you love, and you're able to adjust and make it exactly how you want it to be. And I feel like that moment when you put on that finished item, you don't feel like anything less than a queen, you know, and I kind of liked that application and just how we make our own things.
Right. Well, let's go to the beginning. How did you, like, what was there first? Like, did you learn how to knit first? Did you learn how to crochet first?
I learned to crochet about a decade ago. I taught myself because I was bored and I had Pinterest and I saw all the cute things on there and I wanted to make all the cute things. And I kind of like to figure out how things are put together, and I loved to figure out my own construction very quickly of crocheting things. And then I eventually moved on to knitting. I taught myself to crochet, I taught myself to knit, I taught myself to sew, I've taught myself to spin yarn, I've taught myself everything. And it's just been really fun just learning.
So when you learn something, do you learn like through books, through YouTube? Like, what's your system? What's your approach to learning?
Well, I went to YouTube University is what I call it. I will go over and over. I will find someone who speaks some sort of language that makes sense in my brain, because sometimes you can watch 10 videos of the same thing, different people, and it makes no sense. I just keep going until I find something that clicks. And I don't have a problem with starting a project 2 or 3 or 4 times if I have to. I consider that my practice round. That's like studying for the quiz or the test, and finishing the item is the test itself. So I don't have a problem with pulling back and starting over and making mistakes.
So when you started crocheting, right, what sparked your interest in knitting? Like, why not stick to one thing? Why do you need to learn so many things?
I personally really liked the look of knitting. I liked how the construction is. Like the first time that I turned a heel, I felt like that was like absolutely amazing. Who sat there and was like, I'm gonna do this. And you know, you must have been really bored in the dark by firelight, twisting stitches and just going to town and just like, whoa, look what I did, and showing everyone else. And that's how we got a sock. And you know, like I think about that, the people who just sat there and figured it out. And I wish that I got to see that kind of process, but I just get joy out of learning things. And I think that was a big part of teaching myself to crochet and knit, was that every time that I picked a new project, I insisted that I had to learn something new. I had to learn brioche, I had to do color work, and I had to learn to pick it apart. And I think that's just kind of how I am. I like to be able to do everything. I'm not sure.
Well, is there anything in knitting, like technique-wise, that still sort of intimidates you or terrifies you?
I don't think so. I always think if someone else can do it, I'm perfectly capable of doing it as well. It might take me 100 times, but I will eventually figure it out. It's okay if I don't figure it out right away.
So at what point did you decide that it's time to start dyeing yarn?
When I realized that I spent more time in the yarn aisles than working on my craft, my husband would just leave me at the store and I would just walk up and down and I think it's the same as learning to crochet and knit. I was just looking at these yarns and thinking how that was done, how they would apply and how I would change it and what colors I would do, because I don't really like these ones, but if they had this, I would, not being able to afford indie dyed yarn was also a big push for that as well, because being able to afford the undyed yarn was much more attainable. I would actually go to like Michael's and get 100% non-superwash wool that was rough as a Brillo pad, and I would teach myself to dye on that, and I slowly built up and went from there. It was a very slow process.
So how did you learn that? Like, was that also with the help of YouTube?
Yes, YouTube. I had a couple books. Shortly before I started doing that, I had met a local alpaca farmer, and I was able to handle a little bit of the fiber, and she taught me a little bit of how to brush the fiber and prepare it a little bit. And, that was really the only little bit of contact I had, but she had so much energy that I feel like I was able to kind of carry that forward as well. And I felt like from one conversation with her, you could learn so much. So I kind of carried that. I watched YouTube and really learned by doing. At first, I learned to dye different ways by watching YouTube, but by doing it, I learned to dye my way, and that comes with time.
Well, you mentioned that like the history of knitting fascinates you and you you wish you could watch that moment happening. What about dyeing? Like, is it the same way? Like, do you wonder like who was that first person who decided to throw like onion skins into the water?
Absolutely. Who is boiling onion skins and says, I'm gonna throw a hank of yarn in here, look at the color in this water? I was actually watching a documentary, and it was about the Andes Mountains, and they were there with like the wool and they're spinning it, and I'm like, I could just sit there. Like, I don't need to go on vacation. I need to just go there and hang out with this person and just watch them do what they do, because that's just fascinating and more of a vacation to me than anything else, because I don't relax. And I would be learning in the process. I don't know. I just like to learn all the time. I'm really like just an eater of information, I think. So
how did you change, like when you dyed that first skein to the dyer that you are today? Like, what was that evolution like? What did you learn along the way?
At first I would do one hank of yarn at a time in my kitchen in a special like wok that I had, because it was round and deep. And now I work in these deep pans, and I have all of these yarns to play with. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is to just let myself create and enjoy the experience, and to just keep watching the yarns blend, and almost just not ever let myself feel stagnated, even though I keep dyeing for so long. Just allow myself not to be discouraged, and know that I do have creativity in here somewhere still in the background.
So when you dye, like, how do you decide on colors? Do you have colors that you always come back to? Is it always something new?
Well, right now I'm doing something very new to me, because I just moved from Florida to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So I've been just snow dyeing a lot. It's obviously not been very easy to get a hand of snow in Florida. So Even if I'm using the same dyes, just playing with a different technique is like starting over again, you know, and it's so fun to just watch the colors blend and mishmash in their own way. And I feel almost like I'm at square one again, because I have no idea what's going to happen with yarns as they're blending together.
Can you tell me more about snow dyeing? I never actually heard of that. Like, what is that like?
It starts with me getting a bucket and handing it to my kids and making them pack it full of snow. My yarn, usually I soak the yarn beforehand so that it's wet. I then pack snow on top of the yarn in my pans, and then I apply dye right on top of that. And then I just let it sit and melt naturally without adding any heat. Then the next day I'll apply heat, and then I will speckle over top of it. So I call it snow dyed and speckled is usually what I'll refer to when I dye those. And yeah, I feel like the slower, the science behind it, the slower that the dyes move in together, it ends up getting a lot more blending. It becomes a little more tie-dyed in appearance. You get a lot of more variances in there because it's not flashing as fast in heat. So it's really neat, the little subtle colors that you can get in one little pan of yarn with that technique.
Right. Have there ever been any dyeing disasters?
I've had a couple crunchy ones. I haven't burnt any. I've heard of some people burning their yarn and how bad it can smell. I've been very lucky that I haven't done that. But yeah, other than burning myself, I've burnt myself a lot. That's pretty disastrous. I'm not a fan of burning myself.
So if there is a color that you like, new color, let's say you're working on a new color and you look at it and you don't love it, what happens to that yarn?
I am not a fan of not loving things. I also feel like even though if I don't love it, I know that someone else is going to love it more than anything else that I've ever dyed too. There's always someone out there I know that's going to just love it. And I feel like that's, I think, something that holds some people back is they're not wanting to dye anything that they don't love, or they wouldn't want to dye. So like one year I spent autumn dyeing all neutral colors because I did not dye any neutral colors. And now I dye quite a lot of neutral colors and they're quite popular. But it was a challenge to myself, brown and brown and brown and brown. And now whenever I dye brown, it's like the first color that sells out. And who would think brown yarn would be the one that would sell? But it really, brown is very, very popular. That beautiful neutral color that you can blend with a nice pink or a red or whatever you love. You can really just pair it with a nice, beautiful brown, you know.
Was that surprising for you? Was that the process to realize that even if it's not your favorite color, it's gonna be somebody's favorite color? Was that immediately obvious to you, or it's something you've learned through this journey?
I felt like it was obvious to me because other people would be dyeing things that I didn't really love. And I would see people just, oh my goodness, this is the most beautiful thing. So I'm not going to think anything I've dyed is particularly horrendous unless it looks like baby poo or something. But even then, someone might love that hue of baby poo and want to have a whole sweater out of it. So who am I to judge them?
So when you sell your yarn and people make stuff out of it, are you ever surprised by like how it looks in the finished garment?
Yeah, I'm always surprised that I dyed that. I think every single time I'm always like, oh, I did this. I forget sometimes that I'm sending it out and people actually want to make things with it. And I don't know. I'm always surprised that someone wants to even buy my yarn. I don't know. I just am always excited to see what everyone's making. I really am. I always tell everyone I'm excited to see what you're going to make with this. And I really am. Like, I'm really looking forward to see what you make because I'm very inspired what everyone else is making around me. I don't surround myself with knitters. I don't go to a knitting club or anything. So online, Instagram, who I'm talking to, you're my knitting club, whether you like it or not. So, you know, I want to see what you're making. I really do.
Right. Do you find that, I mean, I find it with myself a lot, that if I just see a hank of yarn, I'm not necessarily having clear picture of what it's going to look like knitted. Do you find that this is something that people tell you a lot? Do you try to make samples of like your dyed yarn so people can understand what it's going to be like in the garment?
I don't make a lot of samples because I know, especially going from crochet to knitting, they're going to look so different. No matter what I do, it's going to look probably different than what you're going to get out of it, especially since every hank of yarn is very individual how I dye it. So I'm not someone who will make a sample not too often. I mean, I dye my yarn to obviously show every now and again, but I personally am more of a see the pattern and then pick the color person too. So I think that's part of my thinking in that as well. I feel like it's hard for me to see a yarn and go, I'm going to knit this with it, and you know, randomly. I don't quite work in that process.
So when you, let's say you dyed yarn and somebody bought it and then they played that famous game of yarn chicken and lost, like, is there a way for you to get another hank that's gonna look the same, or like do you have exact formula that you're coming back and it's gonna be like very similar, or every time you dye it's a new thing?
That depends on the colorway. At first, I actually invented anarchy dye pots a long time ago, where I to dye indie dyed yarns in the way that I do, I think it's impossible to get it 100%. I can try as hard as I want. It's impossible unless you're weighing your dye and you're making solids or something. It's really, really hard to get really consistent. I do measure and I can get it very, very similar, but I can't promise that they will match entirely. The hank doesn't match entirely throughout itself because of how I like to dye personally. So I don't, like, I'm not a big fan of personally when I am dyeing and knitting really blocky colors and stuff like that. I want colors that are going to break up really quickly, and every stitch is going to be pretty unique. When you're moving along, you're going to see a different color and be a little surprised. I didn't expect to see this green in this orange section. I didn't expect to see this blending here and there. So yeah, my dyeing gets a little sporadic with placement sometimes, so it is a little hard to match identically. Yeah.
So when you first started selling yarn, what was that marketing experience like? Was it immediate success? Were people standing in line buying yarn? Was it hard to sell?
I started, like I said, I was dyeing non-superwash yarn. Everything from the beginning I was selling. I didn't have any extra money. I didn't have a loan or anything like that. So from the beginning, if I would buy 10 hanks of undyed yarn, I would sell 10 hanks of undyed yarn, and I was not buying anymore until I sold what I had. And I've actually pretty consistently had to, throughout my career as a dyer, I've been that way. I've never had any crazy bursts of success. And I am lucky enough that I can be the solo income for our family. My husband stays home. He homeschools the kids and takes care of them for me while I'm working, which is fantastic. He does all the cooking and the cleaning, and he does all the dishes, which is great. And but I just work all the time and keep at it, because yeah, I never had like that insta success or anything like that. I've really had to work for my sales.
now, like when you do it, right? So you have to dye yarn, you have to market yourself, you have to package the yarn, you have to ship the yarn. How do you balance it all? How do you spend, like, how do you divide your time? How much time goes into like creative process versus the business side of the thing?
I used to have a separate space in Florida, so I was able to, in the morning, walk outside, go walk over to that space, close the door behind me, and focus. And now, since moving here, balancing, moving across the country, having to do all of these renovations and building our home up from nothing, basically, because we didn't move anything across the country very much. Everything's more integrated. So I'm not so great at finding a balance right now, I'm sad to say, but I wake up anxious every morning and excited to get to work. But it's nice to have everything so connected that I can work throughout the day. I can set timers, I can get up and throw stuff on the dye pot, wash my hands, walk out of the room, and go do other things that I need to do around the house. So right now, things are pretty integrated. So I'm working most of the time throughout the day, and around dinner time, I tell myself it's time to put my phone to sleep and walk away and take a breather, because I really do. It's an all day. It never stops. It's just, I'm on Instagram, I'm messaging people, I'm commenting, I'm interacting. I am on Patreon now, and I've been doing videos for that. So I'm constantly recording for videos for that throughout the day. And I try to post at least 3 videos a week on there. So it's at least 3 days of constantly recording myself working and stuff like that. So it really is like a all the time grind. And I try to take Saturday off. I'm not too good at taking days off.
Does that ever, like, are you ever tired? Do you ever want to stop everything and like start something completely new?
No. I really, really feel happy with what I do. I worked for a few different businesses, and one of my first jobs was as a massage therapist, and it was for a small business. It was a day spa and salon, and the owner was very like hands-on. He would have those meetings, and he'd have the PowerPoint display, and he would be, this is how you do a business. And I just retained it because I, like I said, I really like information. I really like to learn. And after working for him, I worked for the state of New Jersey for EMS, and I worked at the hospital in the hospital system. And I really didn't like working for bigger companies. I liked the small business side of it. I liked the personal thing. I liked connecting with my customers and my clients and the people that I was seeing. And I liked, so much stuck with me from those meetings and just what I enjoyed. And I really just didn't want to work for anyone. I didn't want that. It didn't bring me pleasure. And this just makes me really happy. I feel like so lucky that this is what I get to do. So I would never for anything want to give this away. I feel like especially growing up, you're always told you can't do art. You'll never make money if you're a musician. You'll never do, that's nothing. You have to go to college. You have to do X, Y, and Z, or you're never going to succeed. And I'm like, look at it. I'm succeeding, doing everything you said not to do. And it's fantastic. So, yeah.
What's the hardest thing about being self-employed?
Motivating yourself sometimes. When you're feeling down in the dumps and you don't want to get up and work, it's just, and you just have to tell yourself it's time to go. Here, make a list. If you don't do this, you can't do whatever you want to do. You can't watch TV. You can't go sit down. And until you've dyed these colors, until you've listed this thing, you need to do it. You have to be your own biggest cheerleader when you don't feel like cheerleading for anyone on the planet. And that's a struggle for me.
So what's your dream? Like, where do you see that business going, like next year or the year after? Like, what's the plan for it?
I'm hoping to continue to build out my dye area because I've been having to buy new cookers, buy new everything, new furniture throughout the whole house, not just the dye area. So I'm hoping to be able to fill out my dye space. I have a room here that we have been working on that will be like a crafting room. I want to set up a little shipping department, those little things. I need to reset up all of those things that I had previously to get back to where I was. I feel like I'm rebuilding my foundation this year is really what I'm doing so that I can be where I was with my capabilities a year ago today.
Right. Was COVID difficult for you? Did it make the business more difficult?
I had done a few shows. I didn't like that I wasn't able to do shows. I really liked doing shows. I haven't done any shows at all online or in person since COVID. I've just been selling in my shop and just kind of keeping the gears grinding because my husband has a lot of health issues. So it just isn't an option with him. He has like 50% lung capacity. So we've had to be very, very careful with him in particular. But we're introverts and we're quiet people and we like to just spend time together. And if I go out, I tend to want to just go into the woods or something. So I haven't suffered terribly, I'm sad to say.
Well, talking about going into the woods, so some of your colors that are my favorite colors, the dark roots of the earth and Gaia. And it's all like sort of connected to the earth, to the woods. Is that how you find your inspirations? Is that the common place for new inspirations?
It is. I think just spending time in nature. I remember when I created the color Bohemia in my head, I was at the beach with my mom and the kids, and I just remember just relaxing and just thinking of colors, and that was it. And I feel like, especially when I'm in nature, I can just turn my head off and turn off all the things that I'm doing and let my brain kind of just do what it does, take in everything. I can actually, especially now that I've moved across the country and I'm spending a lot of time outside, seeing a lot of new things. I go to Lake Superior all the time and we just dig around in the rocks and find all of these minerals and gemstones and collect all of these things that are just awesome. My kids, kids and rocks. This is like the ultimate rock land here in Lake Superior. But, all of these new, especially here, experiences that I'm getting to have, I've just been so inspired by everything here. Even now, there's no leaves on the trees. It's snowing, it's gray. You can just get so much joy watching a big woodpecker with its red head blazing through the backyard and blue jays dancing around. Like, there's always color to just absorb when you're looking outside. You just have to take a moment to look and take it in.
So do you take a picture of that woodpecker? Do you write it down in the diary? Do you have some sketchbook that you keep your ideas in?
Because I'm doing Patreon and doing those videos, I'm pretty good about taking videos, and I do try to take inspiring nature videos a lot inside of my Patreon. I've taken hikes and stuff and shown different things doing it that way too. So I tend to do video just because it's something that I'm always doing anyways. It's kind of by default always just rolling. So yeah, I just record all the time.
So what can people gain from becoming a member there?
I do the videos. I try to do at least 3 videos a week, and I post what I'm dyeing, what I'm up to, what I'm seeing outside. I also send out a monthly mystery yarn. there's two different levels that attain the yarn. One is a 50-gram hank of yarn, and then the second level is that 50-gram hank plus a 50-gram hank and a 20-gram. So it's like a shorty sock set is what I call my little sock sets that are 50 grams and 20 plus a 50 grams. So you would get a monthly yarn or two, and videos of what's behind the scenes, what I'm going on with. You'll see what's being dyed before anyone else. You'll see what's going on, and I like it. I think it's fun. It's been a weird, almost like a diary of what we're up to, and it's been a new kind of creative outlet too, just editing these videos together and stuff like that. It's kind of fun.
So how many colors do you have now, like in your not even inventory, in your repertoire?
A million. I have no idea. I just keep creating them and creating them. I've been dyeing for 7 or so years now. And then, like I said, I did the anarchy dye pots in the beginning. I'm always, I continue to always do one of a kind. I love doing one of a kind colorways. I think that's the fun of being a dyer. I don't need to color in the lines all the time. I'm allowed to do this. This is what I do best, just dye yarn and let it just flow. If I can say it simply enough, just let the dye flow and let myself release the belt and, you know, not have to always dye the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. I couldn't do that. I think I wouldn't like it so much if I had to do the same things over and over.
Well, for you personally, like what speaks to your soul more, the tonals, the speckles, like?
The speckles. I love tonals. This is a tonal that I dyed just because it's nice to see all of that hard work you put into it. You want to see all the nooks and crannies. But I actually have a speckled project that I'm working on right now that is cabled too. And I'm really, really excited because I haven't really done a lot of more variegated colored garments. And this is kind of one of the first ones where I'm going to just top to bottom, it's going to be speckled and it's going to be super fun. And I'm hoping to keep doing more speckled and busier versions of these pullovers now. Yeah.
What's that pretty basket behind you? Can we take a quick
This is my bougie blanket. This is a crochet blanket that I've been working on. And that's a granny stripe blanket, and I'm just doing rows of minis and then alternating with rows of an undyed alpaca and silk. So it's very fluffy. They're like little clouds. And on top are some of my holiday colorways that I've recently created.
Is that how like far in advance do you start creating for a certain season?
I don't know. I'm not good at planning. I'm not a planner. I just kind of fly by the seat of my pants. And when I have time to do something, that's when I do it. I created these a couple of weeks ago, so not too far, but I feel like now that I live somewhere with seasons, I'm kind of flowing a little more naturally. Whereas in Florida, it was like Groundhog's Day. It was just sunny and hot all the time. So it didn't feel like Christmas. It didn't feel like Halloween. Didn't feel like any of those things. So now I feel like I'm kind of finding the flow with everyone else a little more naturally here, just because of it's actually cold outside and I need to wear this. I'm figuring out that you guys want DK weight and heavier yarns, not lace weight all the time. No.
Is it hard to come up with the names?
Sometimes. But then I ask someone else. I ask my husband. Sometimes my kids say the darndest things and you just write it down, you know, or you say something funny and you just remember it and it goes from there. But yeah, we're pretty sporadic with names of yarns on my side, and some of them can get pretty long, I know. So
do you have a favorite color? Like, is there, or is it like picking a favorite child?
Yeah, it's different every day of the week, I guess. I love them all. I've always been a bad person for picking favorite movie or favorite anything. Like I could never pick a favorite yarn because it depends on the day of the week and what I'm wearing and my mood and what the weather is. And it really just depends.
So like you dyeing every single day except for occasional Saturday, which you're not even good at taking off. When do you knit? When do you spin? When do you crochet? When do you find time to do like other things?
I've actually not been crafting a lot recently because we had a little bit of mourning and some sad things going on here. I've actually started back knitting recently. Do you mind if I show you my project? I'm going to show you about 3 days worth of knitting, okay? And this is only knitting in the evenings. So this is my Amara sweater, and this is in one of my newer holiday colorways. Like I said, I like to keep busy. I like to keep learning. And even in the evenings, if I have TV on, I can't stop. I just keep going. So I will feverishly knit. I will feverishly crochet. I will just keep every evening. I don't relax. My husband tells me I don't relax, and I understand this.
So how do you take care of yourself? Like if you feel like it's tough day or something, like how do you relax? How do you find your peace?
I am pretty adamant about like doing at least self-care Sunday or self-care Saturday. I try to like top to bottom. I'm going to clip my nails. I'm going to shampoo my hair. I'm going to do a mask. I'm going to take care of myself, make sure I put lotion on, and I try to really just take care of myself. We don't live a very busy life. We live pretty slowly. We take care of ourselves. We're very inclusive of our home. I mean, there's not much we can do. We live quite in the middle of nowhere now. And so we can take our time. And like I said, I can set my timers for the dye pots half an hour and go walk away and make myself a cup of tea. And I am as much as I'm not good at relaxing in the evenings or relaxing overall, even the idea that I am working is kind of relaxing to me. So I feel like I can go have a chai tea, I can go sit down. Plus, I like to play Call of Duty, so.
Okay, do you play with your kids?
My husband, yes.
Couples that play together stay together.
Yes, I'm the better of the two. It's always kind of been how it always is. So,
are there any other interesting hobbies that you do?
We used to play World of Warcraft a lot, but we got out of that. My husband is a photographer, so he really we love to go walk around and take pictures and but right now, it's just a lot of video games because it's so snowy here. We've just had so much that it's the only way to really go hiking right now is to go snowshoeing, but it's kind of melting, so we might be able to go somewhere.
Do you miss Florida at all?
Like, no, not at all. No.
We got introduced by Ross Taylor, and are you finding other dyers inspiring? Do you find some like new ideas for your colors from other dyers? Like, what's your relationship with other dyers?
I love seeing what everyone has to make and everyone's creating. I know that everyone's just so individual, and I love seeing like even like one of my favorite things was on Facebook, in this one group, they would give everyone like the same picture and say, go dye a yarn and from this picture, and just seeing how each person puts almost their fingerprint on what they're dyeing, and you can almost tell who it is before you look at the name after a while of looking at them. I love, it's almost like you become friends with the yarn itself. But I love just looking at what everyone's doing and how everyone's doing it. I love looking at Instagram. I think it's kind of, I've always kind of looked at it as like going into a hall of art and seeing everyone's best and greatest, and everyone's just smiling so big with what they've made. And I like to just see and feel how proud everyone is of what they've done. And I just appreciate so much like how much everyone puts into what they're doing. So I just really do get a lot of joy just looking at what everyone's making and seeing what they're up to, because everyone just getting up to goodness, and at the same time like just finding their own styles and stuff like that. It's fun to watch other dyers kind of evolving too, and finding their footing and finding what they like to do, their little niche and stuff like that as well.
Well, I'm so glad you guys are bringing so much beauty to the world, because I'm like totally obsessed with hand-dyed yarn. I think it's just like the most beautiful thing ever. And, you know, I'm just glad that I got to meet you and I saw your yarn now. So thank you so much for being on my channel today. We're gonna put the link to your store on the description of this video, right?
Mm-hmm.
People can find you on Instagram and they can connect with you and see your yarn.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.